What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rideshare Hub. My name is Greg Wave. For those of you that don't know me, I am a Uber and Lyft driver. I have been for a few years now, and I love it. It's done a lot for me in my life, but it's been definitely caused some harder problems too. So I'm going to talk to you about one of those, and that is a car accident I got into a while ago while driving Uber. Before we jump into this video, I wanted to tell you guys about Cargo Snack Box. And Cargo Snack Box is a really legit company that basically sends you a box of snacks and goodies for free, which is awesome because it's free. No startup costs, no garbage. And basically what you do is then you can sell the snacks to people and you make $1 for every snack or thing you sell. And from what I've heard, there's a lot of times free stuff in the box that you get paid $1 just for giving out. So that's really, really cool. It is not in my market yet, so I don't personally have it, but I have friends that are in, California and a lot of these places that are really into it. Some people have told me they've made upwards of an extra $300 a month on it. And if that's possible, there's no reason you don't get into this for free. You guys have all heard me talk about how I always say, like, have a sales job or have something on the side because people are going to ask what you do and you never know if it's going to make you more money. Similar concept. Like, if you can get this snack box and just talk about snacks or food, people are probably going to say things here and there like, oh man, I'm so hungry, I haven't eaten today. Boom. Imagine your weekend rides when everyone's hammered and all they want to do is stop for food. Boom. Now you're not wasting 10 minutes in the drive-through because you convinced them not to spend too much money, and instead you said, hey, why don't you grab a Snickers off me, sustain yourself, save some money, and I'll get you home. So, but yeah, Cargo Snack Box. I left my link in the description so you guys can check it out. But yeah, so about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I got in a car accident, and it wasn't my fault, but it was an extremely difficult scenario, an extremely frustrating scenario. I was out a car for 2 weeks. I was out of money for 2 weeks because I was out of a car for 2 weeks. And it wasn't like a big legal hassle or anything. But you know what? Tell you what, I'm just going to tell you guys this story from start to finish. You guys can see the whole process, okay? Rather than me trying to hit the important parts or anything like that. So I was driving on a Saturday night. I was making really good money. I can't remember specifically because it was so long ago, but I remember it was 1 a.m. and I'd already made $250. I'd worked a long day if I remember correctly, but I mean, that's good. I'd already nearly made $300. I was an hour or so, give or take, away from, the big surge at 2. And so I was really happy, and I was currently giving, I think, a $550 surge ride. So nothing insane, but I mean, still, an extra $550 a ride is awesome. So I had these two guys in my back seat, really awesome guys. Was talking to them the whole way, having a great conversation. We're literally 3 minutes away from their home. I go through a green light, and this dude smacks the back of my car. Now, it wasn't anything crazy because, I kept driving. It's not like it, spun me out and I went flying and, they're, puking in the back as they're dizzy from spinning and getting hurled. No, it's nothing crazy. He just went through the green light and, hit the back end of my car. So, moved my car a little bit that way, and I just kind of recorrected, and I was like, what was that? It was, that confusing. And the guys were like, oh my God, you just got hit. And I was like, are you serious? And I asked them first, I was like, that was a green light, right? And they were like, oh yeah. They're like, we both saw it. You don't worry. They're like, you're good, bro. So I pulled over and I put my hazards on, and so this guy that hits me pulls up behind me and he's got his hazards on. And so I get out, and I'm generally a pretty nice guy. I was like, hey, how's it going, man? He's like, hey, not too much. He's like, did you not see me? And I was like, are you serious? You literally hit my car. He was like, well, yeah, but I mean, I had the right of way. And I was like, look, man. I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. I was like, here's the reality. I was like, I had the right of way. I had a green light. I was like, I've got two guys in my back seat that I was Ubering that are fairly convinced it was a green light. So I was like, it's up to you if you want to walk down this road or not. But I was like, I've got actual witnesses. And he was like, did I really run that light? And I was like, dude, I was like, I don't know if you weren't looking. And like, I don't know if he was drinking or anything, but he didn't like appear drunk. He didn't smell like alcohol. And he wasn't slurring his words. He was talking very naturally. So I really don't think he was like lying, but I was just like, what? How? So, he was like, man, he's like, I was like, it's okay. I was like, tell you what, I was like, you seem like a good dude. I was like, we don't need to get the cops involved. I was like, we're going to take care of this ourselves. I was like, as long as you're willing to admit that this is your fault. And I was like, I'm going to take pictures of your license, you know, your license plate, everything, so that, you know, I have some security. He's like, oh yeah, for sure. And then he got into like an apologetic thing, and he was saying sorry like 100 times. And so we swapped insurance, and it was really tough because at that time of night I had blah 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 blah. I had Geico at the time. I couldn't remember who I was insured by. And so I you know, called their emergency line, and it was all good until I told them I was Uber driving, and then they basically said, there's not a thing we can do for you. I mean, that's like layman terms. We talked for a lot longer. Obviously, I was heated and cussing and saying things I shouldn't have said to the poor, you know, third shift phone center clerk for Geico. But yeah, so we talked for a long time, but basically what they said is like, we never knew you were an Uber driver, so we can't cover this. So rideshare insurance, first tip, is something you're going to want to think about. There are some actually, this is totally random, but there are some actually affordable rates for rideshare insurance. There is a plan, man, it's slipping me at the time. I don't know if I have this written down anywhere. Let me see if I can find this real quick, because there is a company I know of that for rideshare insurance, they basically, yeah, it looks like I don't have it here, but I'll find it later, and I'm going to leave a link in the description for this rideshare insurance company, because basically what they do is your rate is based more off your recorded miles, and it's like pennies per mile, and then you basically pay a low base rate and then pennies on the mile for how much Uber driving you do that month, and it's going to be way more affordable. I cannot remember the name of that freaking company. But yeah, I'll leave a description in the link so you guys can check that out, because that's something like, the topic of rideshare insurance is really, really frustrating, because like Uber and Lyft aren't even that, like, they don't even really say you need it. Like, they say that you've got their insurance and then you need full coverage to drive. And it's like, I was really ticked off because I only ever had full coverage, you know? And I was like, okay, now I'm in this scenario where I need you guys to help me, and you won't, even though I've been paying you month after month after month. And it's, you know, it's just frustrating. So I really hate that, like, we do but don't need rideshare insurance, but it's something you need, because you're at a really high risk of getting in an accident every time you drive Uber. Like, our odds are higher. And I'm not saying that to sound like the negative Nancy. I mean, if you're a safe driver, I think you're good no matter what. But I'm just saying, like, statistically, we are more prone to that, you know? So having that insurance and guarantee is good, you know? But yeah, so the other thing I did was I contacted Uber's insurance at the scene, and this was what was like maddening for me, because they were not helpful at all. Like, they were basically just asking me questions, trying to prove that, like, they shouldn't be involved and that Geico should take care of everything. And so it was just like a lot of like broad questions, and I kept coming back to, I'm like, hey, here's the reality. I was Ubering. I had 2 people in the back seat. Well, in the end, I just never heard back from them. They said they were going to review my case or something along those lines. I can't really remember because it was a long time ago. It just never ended up being anything. So I had to deal with it all on my own, because Geico didn't do anything, because, you know, they didn't know I was an Uber driver, so they didn't want to cover it. And so I had to negotiate with this kid's insurance, and I was on the phone with his insurance for like the next week after that. One of the most frustrating parts of the entire thing was that I wasn't able to get a rental car because I wasn't 25 at the time. So they said if I were to get a rental, I would have to pay $50 a day just for not being 25. And I was like, so you're telling me I get in this car accident, it's not my fault, and my car's in the shop. My car was in the shop for 2 weeks because it wasn't like a really aggressive accident, but I needed an entire new bumper. So it was in the shop for a while. So for 2 weeks I had no vehicle because I was like, well, I'm not going to pay $50 a day for a car that I can't even Uber in, you know? So for 2 weeks I didn't have a vehicle. I wasn't working, and it was crazy because none of it was my fault. But that's like one of the more unfortunate things about Uber and Lyft and being a worker. Well, not even an employee, being a independent contracted probably just contractor, for them, is that like in scenarios like this, like no one really respects that. It's not considered provable income. And that was what they were telling me on the phone, because I was trying to say like, look, I need you to compensate me for some work. And they said, because it's Uber and Lyft, you know, it's not considered like provable income, so we can't give you anything. Like even a stipend, even like a few $100s a week, be like, here's some grocery money or something. But nothing out of that at all. And that's the biggest reason to be really, really wary. Now, if this happened to me now, what I would do is I would just go rent a car from Uber and Lyft and drive for 2 weeks on the rental program. But at the time I didn't even really know about it, so it was something I couldn't do. So I'm backtracking. So for 2 weeks I had no car, and they wouldn't do anything. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So one thing that's like the biggest thing to keep in mind, because this will affect your life in a lot of ways with Uber and Lyft, is most creditors and companies don't consider Uber or Lyft proof of income. Now, what I always ask them is, I say, I've done this with different like leasing companies and stuff. I say, hey, what if I bring in the last 3 months of bank deposits? And most companies will actually be okay with that. And for me, it works because I tell them that I just run my own business. And so usually if I say that, they don't even ask about Uber and Lyft. And then what happens is I bring in the bank statements, and whether it was the pay stubs from Uber and Lyft or not, they don't really care. They can see then, okay, well, on average, he's making, he's depositing this amount of money into his account each month. That's what they look for each month. And I bought this car doing that. So that does work. And the financer told me like, that's okay to do. Like he said, you're not doing anything shady there. And he said, honestly, most companies would probably get to a point of recommending that. So he's like, really just start by saying something like that. Total rabbit trail, really, really sorry. But I do think that's like really important stuff. So basically, for 2 weeks, I was without a vehicle. I couldn't make money. It was a really, really tough financial season. Now, this is what's interesting. So when I get the car back, I keep driving like nothing's changed, because I didn't realize that Geico probably did something to my insurance. Now, the craziest thing is they didn't tell me, but they didn't drop me entirely. They just dropped me to liability only, which was a really scary thing for me. Now, keep in mind, I didn't know. So for the next 3 to 6 months, I can't really remember how long it was before I figured it out, I was driving a car that I was financing. So you have to have full coverage to drive a vehicle you're financing. So I was driving a vehicle with liability only that I was financing, and I was driving Uber on a vehicle with liability only. Now, I don't check my bank like super, super often. I have mine really structured. I have all my auto pay set up. And that's just how I like doing it. I feel like every time I open my bank account, it's like, whether you're making good money or not, it's like, it's just a stressful thing, So like, I hate getting on the bank app and checking to see my money each day. I just feel like then I'm like stressing about it constantly. So I like just all my auto pay set up. So I never saw that I was only getting charged $30 a month as opposed to like $150 a month or whatever I was paying. It was somewhere in like $110 to like $150. And so for 6 months, I'd been doing that. Now, here's the crazy thing, guys. Like, the repercussions for me, if anything had happened, would have been insane. if I'd gotten in a car accident and I had only had liability only, I would still to this day be paying off that car accident. If Uber had found out, I probably would have gotten permanently suspended. You know, they're pretty serious about having that coverage, because like if you get an accident with someone in the car, now I don't know why they're so serious about it, because like in this scenario, Geico didn't want to do anything. So I've always wondered, like when they say full coverage, do they mean like we just need to have rideshare coverage, or like what are they really wanting from that? Because it doesn't seem too clear to me. But yeah, so if anything had happened from that time period, I would have been in like I said, it would have been something that to this day would still be affecting me. I would still be paying for it this day. So yeah, so that being said, when I finally figured it out, I dropped Geico. I had like a screaming match with them on the phone, because I'm like, listen, I get it that you guys had to drop me. Like, I was naive. I really didn't know. Like, I wasn't trying to be shady. I really thought all I had to have was full coverage. And so I basically told him, I was like, listen, like, you could have literally like ruined my life. Like, I am very fortunate that it's not. But that being said, like, you guys never told me that you dropped me to liability only. Like, I was like, I feel like there's got to be some kind of legality for that. And they just were, you know, then reversing it on me, saying, well, I should have said something. And I was like, I had no idea. Because again, when I'd signed up for the insurance originally, I wasn't a rideshare driver. And I remember, I think they asked me when I first signed up, but I wasn't at the time, you know? And I don't know if they even said like if I ever would be. Like, I don't know. I just don't remember it well enough, because in my head, all I saw was drive Uber and Lyft, just need full coverage, you know, and that was just where my train of thought was at. So I'm going to stop the video right here. That's pretty much all that happened. I basically ended up getting my insurance back eventually. And fortunately, nothing ever happened. The main reason I wanted to share this video with you guys, though, is because I don't want this type of scenario to happen to any of you. And then maybe, like, you lose your ability to drive or Uber, or you lose your car because you got dropped on your insurance or something like that, and they somehow found out, you know? So just be really cautious. I mean, car accidents are like one of those things where like you always think it's going to happen to someone else, but like being that we're on the road this much, we have way higher odds of getting one than anyone else. So I just think that it's good stuff to know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be safe out there, y'all, and I will talk to you guys soon.